Hi there. In this video, I'm going to be going through all the rings in Dark Souls 2, explaining a little bit about how to get them and how to use them the most effectively. I've been playing this game for a long time now, and I've seen a lot of people use rings that are very inefficient and ineffective for their build, and hopefully you can get a better understanding of which rings are actually worth your time. This video will be focusing on PvE, so not PvP. I believe that on YouTube, in terms of tips and guides and stuff like that, the majority of high quality content is already out there for PvP. So this is purely based on single player, playing through the game. Alright, let's start off simple with the Ring of Blades. This ring adds damage to your weapon. There are 3 different versions of this ring: normal one, +1, and +2. You get all of the Ring of Blades from different pursuers around the game. The first one is acquired in the Forest of Fallen Giants. The second one you get in the Iron Keep. You have to go back to the boss room where you fought the Smelter Demon after you rested a bonfire. And the +2 version is acquired by burning a bonfire ascetic in Drangley Castle after defeating the boss of the area, or by going to New Game Plus. So yeah, this ring is overall very good for characters that use physical weapons. One thing to keep in mind about the Ring of Blades is that if you have a weapon that is enchanted or has innate elemental damage, such as the Black Knight weapons or the Hate Knight weapons, something like that, the ring will do approximately half damage. So it's not good to use on enchanted weapons. It's a ring for physical weapons only. Okay, so going from a very useful ring to one that isn't that great, the Ring of Restoration. This ring is also acquired here in the Forest of Fallen Giants, and the reason I say it's really bad, you get 2 health per second, okay? So after a minute, you will have 120 health. However, even early on in the game, when you're fighting, low-tier enemies, they're still doing like 50. Some of them are doing 100. Some are doing even more damage than that. And it takes you a full minute to recover 120 health. Early on in the game, when you don't have a lot of options in terms of your rings, sure, use it if you want. But I see so many players use this ring very, very late on in the game when they have options that would be way, way better for their build. There's one ring that is a direct upgrade to this one, pretty much, because it gives you 50 points of health every time you kill an enemy. So that can happen, 10 times in a minute. The Ring of the Evil Eye, it's called. Basically, don't use the Ring of Restoration. When you get something that is better than this, replace it. Pretty much any ring will be better than it, as long as it helps you out even a little bit in your build. Alright, next up is the Chloranthy Ring. This is overall a very useful ring. You find the normal version in the Forest of Fallen Giants. The +1 can be found in the Shaded Woods inside an iron chest, and the +2 can be acquired after killing the Executioner's Chariot in New Game Plus, or burning a bonfire ascetic in the Undead Purgatory, so the bonfire after you kill the boss, basically. The normal version of this ring gives you 12% or maybe 12.5% quicker stamina regeneration. The +1 gives you 20, and the +2 gives you 25. I think the sweet spot for this ring is probably like if you don't want to fight a boss in New Game Plus. The Executioner's Chariot can be a little tricky. Is to just get the +1 in the Shaded Woods, because the difference between the +1 and the +2 is 5% stamina regeneration. So the Chloranthy Ring creates like a green aura around your character. This is the same for the Ring of Restoration, by the way, except it's an orange aura. It can be a little bit annoying if you're someone who likes, Fashion Souls, looking at your character and stuff like that. That's why this ring is more often used in PvP, because at that point, like, stamina is obviously very, very important in PvP. All right, so the Life Ring. This ring basically gives you more health, right? Very simple. When I started playing Dark Souls 2, I didn't really understand why people like this ring so much. But, as I've played this game more and more, I've come to understand that health is probably, in my opinion, is probably the most important stat for most players overall. Because increasing your survivability is important for when you're making mistakes, right? You can make more mistakes the more health you have. Essentially, you're harder to kill. So the Life Ring has 4 different versions. You have the normal one, +1, +2, and +3. The +3 is found in the DLC, and they give you 5% more health, 7.5, 10, and 15. You can use this ring sometimes in combination with other rings, Or if you're going really hollow and you need that little bit of extra boost, you can also use the life rings to drop down places such as the well in combination with, for example, the cat ring. Alright, so here we go, the white ring. This is a ring you get by trading with the crows in Things Betwixt. Basically, it gives you the appearance of a phantom, right? It's very simple. You turn like white when you put it on. The uses for this ring are primarily for like when you're co-oping with somebody. Let's say someone invades your world or your friend's world. Whoever the host is can put on this ring, and to the invader it will appear as if there are two phantoms. He won't be able to tell the difference between the host and the phantom. The reason this is so important is because when someone invades, then the phantom cannot use Estus flasks. So invaders will know this and try to like create a strategy so that they will like rush down the person who is the phantom, because they know they don't have an easy way to heal. However, if you know this thing, you can potentially turn the fight to your advantage. So on that note, I also want to mention the Ring of the Living. This is found in a very annoying area in the game, Frigid Outskirts, towards the end, right before you enter the boss fight. Basically, this makes you appear human when you are a phantom. I believe it can also be used as a red phantom, so you can invade as a red phantom and look like a human. This can be used well, like if you come to your friend's world, for example, and you want to show off your build without looking like a phantom, you would just look like the normal person. And again, same as with the white ring, if you put this on, someone invades, they won't be able to tell who is the host and who is the phantom. If your build can afford to quote-unquote waste a ring slot like this, then you can use it in that way. Alright, so the Coverist Silver Serpent Ring. This ring gives you souls, more souls basically, whenever you kill an enemy. There are 3 different versions of it. You get 10% more, 20% more, and 30% more souls. The normal version is acquired after you kill the Pursuer, and you take a bird to the Tower Apart bonfire. There will be another Pursuer fight very shortly after, and inside a chest you will find the normal one. You can get the +1 by spending 10,000 souls on Melintia, and the +2 you get after you defeat a boss in New Game Plus or Burning a Bonfire Ascetic. It's Mytha, the Baneful Queen. So the Silver Serpent Ring can be combined with other items, such as the Seldora set, to acquire a ton of souls. If you have the +2 and the full Seldora set, I believe you can get 55% more souls, basically. So if you're someone who's trying to like max out your character really quickly, you can do this. However, it doesn't really have any benefit in combat, so you need to keep that in mind. If you're constantly dying because you're handicapping yourself, because you want to get more souls, you know, it may be considered to use something else. However, one clever thing that you can do with this ring is right before you're about to kill the boss, or as the boss dies, you have like 3 seconds-ish to equip it, and you can actually get the souls for the boss. Like you kill the boss with your normal build, and then you quickly equip this ring to get the 20, 30, 10% more souls basically. So the Silver Cat Ring, this little bugger is acquired in Majula, sold to you by the cat in Majula. It reduces fall damage by a substantial amount, much more than any other item in the game except fall control, which is a spell. So it costs 13,400 souls. One thing that you can do, and it kind of opens up a door if you're someone who likes to speedrun or go places you technically shouldn't early on, you can kill the Dragon Rider quickly, get about 12,000 souls from him, and then start dropping down the well in Majula. I would recommend keeping the Silver Cat Ring like on your character, not equipped necessarily, but if you need to take a lot of fall damage, you could potentially equip it in that scenario. So I'm gonna mention now the Ring of the Evil Eye, because you can do a nifty little thing with the cat ring early on, and it can give you a significant advantage, especially somewhere like the Forest of Fallen Giants that has a lot of smaller enemies. So let me explain. The Ring of the Evil Eye you can get also with the cat in Majula. However, I don't recommend buying it from her, because if you buy the cat ring after killing the Dragon Rider, let's say, you can drop down the well, and almost at the bottom of the well there will be the Ring of the Evil Eye +1. So this ring has 3 different versions, and the normal one gives you 30 points of health when you kill an enemy. The +1 gives you 50 points of health, and the +2 gives you 80 points of health. So the +2, you get it after defeating the Throne Watcher and Defender in New Game Plus or burning a bonfire ascetic. That is sort of the theme of rings, that the +2 versions of rings basically. So in the beginning of this video I mentioned the Ring of Restoration. That was basically 120 points of health every minute. The Ring of the Evil Eye +1, which you can get relatively early on in the game, will basically give you 100 points of health after killing 2 enemies. So what you could do is get it by buying the cat ring, dropping down the well, and taking the Ring of the Evil Eye with you to the Forest of Fallen Giants. It's also useful in an area such as No Man's Worth, because early on in the game you don't have that many Estus flasks. So if you have something that's giving you, basically 50 points of health back, that is quite significant. And you're fighting small enemies that are taking about 1 or 2 hits, or 2 or 3 hits rather, to kill, you can definitely go through the game a little bit easier. It can also be used very effectively somewhere like the gutter. Okay, next up is the Ring of Binding. This ring, every time you die in Dark Souls 2, you lose 5% of your health, but this ring halves it. So every time you die, if you're wearing this ring, you will lose 2.5% of your health. The most you can lose of health is 50%. Approximately. You can be a sinner and lose more health than that, but for all, to keep it simple, you can lose 50% of your health. If you equip this ring, your health will go back up to 75%. So it's useful if you're running out of effigies and you are dying a lot. Also, this ring can be used in combination with things such as the Weapons of the Forlorn and the Dark Pyromancy Flame. These things scale with how hollow you are. So the more hollow you are, the more damage you get from these weapons and the Pyromancy Flame. They're not really viable for PvE though, but yeah, it's there. Alright, the Leo Ring. This is a very good ring for PvP because thrust weapons are very good in PvP. Basically, it gives you 12% more damage towards your thrusting attacks. So it will be ideal to use with things like lances, rapiers, spears, things of that nature, right? It's given to you after you kill the old Dragon Slayer in Hate's Tower of Flame. And yeah, it can be thought about kind of like a Ring of Blades, sort of, for thrust weapons. This is a ring you can use very effectively if you want to, speedrun a boss or just stack a bunch of damage. If you have a thrust weapon, you can use Flynn's Ring, Ring of Blades, Leo Ring, stuff like that, buffs, you can definitely do a lot of damage with this ring. Using it with a lance and its running attack, it's also very effective. So the Royal Soldier Ring, this is one of my favorite rings in the game. There are 3 different versions of it. You get the first one in No Man's Worth. The +1 you get in Drangley Castle. You have to navigate through a very tricky room with like ruined sentinels and stone soldiers. One little tip with that room, when you enter, go to the right and just follow the outskirts of the room pretty much the entire way. If you stay away from the middle, the guys in the middle shouldn't spawn, and take out the sentinels as you make your way through. But the +2 you get after defeating Velstad in New Game Plus or burning a bonfire ascetic. So the rings give you more equip load, 10%, 15%, and 20%. Basically, the Royal Soldier Ring can be sort of thought about as like a Chloranthy Ring. The lower your equip load is, the quicker your stamina regeneration. It's also very good to combine with the Chloranthy Ring. But basically, you're supposed to use it if you're using a lot of armor, a lot of heavy armor, which many players in Dark Souls 2 do. However, this ring is very, very overlooked. I kind of feel like if you're someone who's using armor, weapons, you're a typical warrior melee type character, then this ring should find a place in your build, in my opinion. The blue Tearstone Ring, it's found in the Lost Bastille in Belfry Luna. You have to drop down a hole in the floor to get it. And what it does is, it's a little interesting. Basically, when you get below 30% health, it gives you 35 better defense. So it's kind of like an in-between thing of like the life ring and the Ring of Steel Protection. It's quite significant. You will definitely notice the difference that you're taking less damage. However, it's not working for you until you actually drop below 35% health. It's like an 30% health. It's like an, oh shit button. You're getting low on health basically. You can make an argument for switching this ring out especially for like the normal life ring and maybe even the +1, depending on what kind of enemies you're fighting. It will be more effective to use against smaller enemies that don't hit very hard, because if you're fighting a boss that basically takes almost, half your HP, then it's not really gonna matter. You don't want to be at 30% health at that point. All right, so following up the previous ring, I wanted to mention the red tearstone ring. This does something similar, but like in the opposite way. When you get to 30% health, it boosts your damage by 20 points. So notice how it's giving you 20 points of damage and not 35 of defense like the blue tearstone did. Damage in Dark Souls 2 is generally regarded as like a better buff, basically, so it's not going to give you 30 points of damage or 35% better damage, whatever. People in PvP tend to switch to this ring as kind of like a ring of blades. It does, I think in a lot of cases, it will actually do more damage than the ring of blades if you are below 30% health. So yeah, overall really good ring. However, there are risks involved. This is another ring that you can use when you want to, one-shot bosses or two-shot bosses, right? You stack Ring of Blades, Flynn's ring, Leo ring, and then, for example, this ring, and purposely get really, really low on health. So you're basically a glass cannon at that point. Okay, so the Southern Ritual Band. This is one of my favorite rings. I never really go without it. It has 3 different versions. You have the normal one, +1, and +2. The normal one is found in the Lost Bastille after killing the gargoyles. The +1 you get in Brightstone Cove Soldora, and the +2 you get after defeating Scorpionus Nashka in New Game Plus or burning a bonfire ascetic in the nearby bonfire. This ring gives you 1, 2, and 3 attunement slots when you equip it. So the reason I find this ring so good is because it's not just useful for mages, which is what people initially think. Oh, it gives you attunement slots, just useful for mages. Dark Souls 2 has a lot of pyromancies. Pyromancies are fire spells, right? But they don't require any intelligence or faith. So if you have the attunement slot, any character could use very useful pyromancies such as, fireballs, firestorm, flame swathe, which does a lot of damage. You can use things like warmth, which heals you and your friend. It also heals, by the way, I believe, bosses and invaders. So you have to be careful with that. If you've ever been invaded by somebody who, had a pyromancy glove, he was kind of like wearing Hexer type armor, and they did a lot of damage with their pyromancy flames, odds are these players have the Southern Ritual Band. They've basically tweaked the game, as they call it. They make their way through the game at a low level, and then they come back and invade low-level players. So it's pretty douchey. However, this ring is most likely part of their build, so you know it's a very good ring. It changes your build drastically, basically. Having the addition of spells can be really useful in a lot of builds, especially like supporting spells, Okay, the Ring of Steel Protection. This is one that I don't find very good. I've done some tests in Dark Souls 2, and for PvE purposes, like when you're making your way through the game, having high defense doesn't really do much for you. If you're picking an armor set, for example, you want to have an armor set that has decent weight to poise ratio rather than defense. Overall, this ring is pretty bad. You get the normal version from Soldan in Majula after you die like 50 or 100 times and then talk to him. You get the +1 when you talk to Lucatiel 3 times, and the +2 after defeating the Mirror Knight in New Game Plus or again burning a bonfire ascetic. Overall, I would give this ring a pass. You are much better off increasing your health and than like relying on this ring for defensive purposes. Putting on the life ring is better than this. Putting on the blue tearstone ring, for example, is also probably better than this. Just really don't use the Ring of Steel Protection. It doesn't do much for you. Okay, so the clear bluestone ring. This is a very, very good ring. Probably like top 10 rings in the game. It increases your cast speed. So the normal one is given to you or you can buy it from Carillion of the Fold. The +1 is found in an iron chest in the Shaded Woods, and the +2 is given to you after you defeat the Skeleton Lords in NG Plus or burning a bonfire ascetic. So they give you 20%, 35%, and 55% better cast speed. There are not very many items in the game that increase your cast speed, so this ring is like one of the best things for that. It's mainly used by mages though, of course, and combined with like a staff that has very good cast speed. But yeah, that's basically its purpose. Cast speed is quite viable. You can also increase your attunement, I believe, to increase your cast speed. Alright, so the third dragon ring. This ring has 3 different versions. They're not called +1, +2. They're basically first, second, and third dragon ring. The first one, ironically enough, is technically the hardest one to get. You have to rank up to rank 2 in the Company of Champions. It's a covenant you can join in Majula that makes the game a little bit harder, or significantly harder, really. The second dragon ring is given to you after speaking to Man-Scorpion Tark. However, in order to talk to Man-Scorpion Tark, you need a ring that the cat in Majula sells. It's called the Ring of Whispers. I believe that's its only purpose. I'm not sure why they tied a ring to like one NPC and that's it. But hey, and the third dragon ring is found in the Dragon Eyrie. These rings are, I would say, top 5, maybe even top 3. It's a very good ring for PvP. What it does, it gives you health, stamina, and equip load. It increases that a little bit across the board. So it's like a combination of, the life ring plus the royal soldier ring, a little bit of Chloranthy. It just has so many benefits that it's just great. The downside to using this ring is that it has very low durability. If someone hits you with Acid Surge, which is a pyromancy that breaks your equipment, this ring will tend to be the first thing to go. And if you're relying on it, because it increases your equip load, so if you're very close to the 70% mark and you're relying on it for rolling, it could potentially turn the tide of the battle really, really quickly. However, you can use it in the opposite way if you know the enemy's using this ring, right? So I touched on the Ring of Whispers. It's basically just, it's sold to you by the cat in Majula, 5,800 souls, and it's the only use that I know is that to talk to Man-Scorpion Tark. It also, the enemies will make like a growling sound when you're near them. I guess maybe it can give them away. I don't know. I haven't heard of any other uses for this ring, but basically the primary use for it is to talk to Man-Scorpion Tark. However, when you do, if you want to get the second dragon ring, you have to defeat the boss of the level where you find Man-Scorpion Tark, and you also have to defeat the Duke's Dear Freya. That's when, after you talk to him, when you do that, that's when he gives you the second dragon ring. Okay, next up, all of the quartz rings, or the elemental protection rings. You have magic, lightning, fire, and dark. These rings have 4 different versions. Normal one, +1, +2, and +3. You find, I'm not gonna go over where you find every single one. Sometimes vendors sell them, other times it's just a random drop, but the +3 versions of these rings are found in the DLCs. So the +3 versions of the rings give you 150 defense towards whatever element you decide to, whatever ring you decide to equip. For reference, the Flash Sweat Pyromancy gives you 300 points towards fire defense. So these rings are good if you want to stack. That's always the thing that you need to remember when you're trying to defend yourself against poison, whatever status effect. You always have to stack. They've pretty much made this game, so let's say you're fighting the Dark Lurker, right? Just putting on one of these rings and getting 150 points towards dark or fire to mitigate his damage is not really going to help you that much. You have to stack things. This is why I think personally something like Flash Sweat is so useful, because it's a spell. It doesn't require any status effect, any investment in intelligence or faith, and it does 300 defense towards fire. So you get a significant boost, and you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to waste a ring slot or anything like that. However, self buffs, keep in mind that self buffs cannot be stacked with other things. So if you do use Flash Sweat, you cannot use things like a Bright Bug, the Green Blossom that gives you stamina regeneration. Nothing that you can consume, basically, if you have Flash Sweat on. But yeah, those are the quartz rings. They're useful for what they are. Maybe keep them on your character if you want to be, super duper careful. I wouldn't recommend equipping them because enemies in this game don't really do magic or lightning or fire damage that often to where I would find it really worth it personally. Okay, so the bite rings, if you want to call it that. You have Poison Bite, Blood Bite, Curse Bite Ring, and Ash Knuckle Ring. I'm just going to throw in the Ash Knuckle Ring here as well. The Poison Bite gives you resistance to poison, Blood Bite, Bleed, Curse Bite against Curse, and Ash Knuckle Ring gives you Petrification resistance. The Poison, the Blood, and the Curse Bite Ring give you 300 defense against their corresponding, status effect. And the Ash Knuckle Ring doesn't actually have a plus 1 version, I believe, but it gives you 400 against Curse, or Petrification rather. Yeah, these rings are good if you're facing enemies, or I tend to use them in the challenge area in the first DLC. I tend to use the Petrification Ring with the statues that petrify you, stack that with a good armor. But, you know, generally they're not that great. You can also use the Poison by Ring in the pools when you're picking up the poison in Harvest Valley. So for situations like that, these rings kind of fall under the same category as other rings that give you defenses. You want to stack and you want to use them in situations where, you know, in specific situations, you don't really want to have them on your character the entire time. That's not really necessary, but yeah, those are the status effect rings. Okay, next up, the Dispelling Ring and the Ring of Resistance. These rings kind of combine a couple of the other rings that increase your elemental damages. The Dispelling Ring gives you, you know, magic, lightning, fire, and dark, and the Ring of Resistance gives you poison, bleed, curse, and petrification. Like I mentioned with the other, you know, the quartz rings and bloodbite ring and stuff like that, you ideally want to stack them if you are thinking about taking a bunch of fire damage or a bunch of elemental damage, I should say. They you know, they do what they're supposed to. They give you 120 towards all of their corresponding effects. The Dispelling Ring has 2 different versions. One you can get from Royal Sorcerer Navlan, and the other one is found in the Fire DLC in one of the walls that explodes. And the Ring of Resistance is found on a corpse in the Ivory King DLC. Okay, next is the Bracing Knuckle Rings. These ones can all be acquired in regular New Game. The first one is in the Lost Bastille, the second one is in Drangley Castle. You need to talk to Chancellor Welliger, and the +2 you get in the Undead Crypt. It's just an item sitting there. These rings can be relatively useful. On the surface, you would just think, oh, let's just use them on a weapon that has low durability, such as, like, you know, the Ricard's Rapier or something like that, or whips. But you can also use this ring if you have weapons that have special attacks, such as the Smelter Demon Swords. I'll give you an example. The Smelter Demon Swords, or weapons that have innate elemental damage, are not that useful with something like the Ring of Blades. So one thing you could do is to switch the Ring of Blades, for example, out for the Bracing Knuckle Ring, and you can use the special attack more often, because every time you use a special attack, it takes durability like crazy. With the Bracing Knuckle Ring, you can definitely mitigate that. Or something like Ricard's Rapier infused with poison, right? You're trying to poison your enemy. You hit 9 times, by the way, with that weapon, but it doesn't have a lot of durability. That is, if you do the special attack with Ricard's Rapier, you will poison most things in the game, unless the boss or the enemy is immune to poison. So it's a nice and quick and easy way to get a lot of poison damage out. Bracing Knuckle Ring can be used for that, basically. The Soul Stone and the Time Stone. I mean, the Ring of Soul Protection and the Ring of Life Protection. So these rings, basically, whenever you die, you don't turn hollow, and you also don't lose your souls, but the ring breaks. You can repair them for 6,000 and 3,000 souls by a blacksmith. These rings used to be a lot more abundant in normal version of Dark Souls 2. You could get like 5 or 6 of them, so it was basically a cheat code. They've made it less so in Scholar of the First Sin, but you can still use them and repair them. And if you want to feel like Thanos, I guess you can use these rings. They're not that overpowered, to be honest with you. You still have to go, you know, you still have to waste the ring slot, I guess, on it, but you know, it's whatever. You can use them if you want. I don't see really that many people use these rings. It kind of defeats the purpose of the Dark Souls, but yeah, they're there. Okay, so as I was making this video, I realized how bloody long it was going to be if it was all to be in one video. So I decided to split it up into 2 parts, and I will be continuing on part 2. Thanks for watching this one though. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and I'll see you then. Goodbye.